Hi, and thank you for joining me. I'm going to explain a theory of mine that I developed over 10 years ago concerning multiverses and constructed reality and an interested creator. These were essays that I copyrighted, I think in 2008, and now that I've started experiencing the Mandela Effect myself, I have to say that a lot of the ideas that I started developing all those years ago, I think are coming into play now. So I do have a very specific theory involving the Mandela Effect, and I'm hoping that by putting this theory out there, it will cause a lot of calmness and peace of mind for people who have become extremely disturbed by the Mandela Effect. And I would like to say that, like many of you, I also was very disturbed about the Mandela Effect when I first noticed it. Strangely, I noticed many of these effects all over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years, since around 2012. But I didn't really become concerned enough to start looking into it until I saw that somehow Australia had migrated about 1,000 miles northeastward. And that I found, disturbing enough that I began looking into what has happened. And when I Googled, how is Australia so far north, boom, the Mandela Effect came up. That was around the 1st of November of 2017, and wow, I have vivid memories not only of these things being the way they were, but also the day that I realized that they were not like that anymore. I don't need to go into all of those lists. They're pretty much the same that the others have talked about. And I have to say, I've done some of their quizzes, and I score about 80%, meaning 80% of the things that they have on their quizzes, I recall being the way that they are not now. So somehow I have a memory of them being a way they supposedly never were. So there you go. I find that very disturbing, but I think that when I actually sat down and started logically thinking about how this could have happened, and I based my assumptions on things that I had already written in essays nearly 10 years ago and copyrighted them, because I found that at the time they were very unusual ideas, but I believed that they were founded in quantum physics, and that they went very hand in hand with the theories at the time of quantum physics. I'm really glad I did, because it has a huge bearing on what we're experiencing today as the Mandela Effect. So I'll just get into it. When I had written down and copyrighted my beliefs in an entangled multiverse system, and also my belief in an interested creator who used genetic code and other computer-like code to program this three-dimensional world that we experience all around us, I realized that our creator must come from a place outside of what we experience as time and space, and that we experience this universe in a three-dimensional linear fashion bound by the constraints of time and space only because we are created biological entities designed to exist here, which we cannot truly grasp because of our own biological limitations. In fact, these concepts are so complicated to understand that even if we are able to theorize about them, and in my case, I even believe in them, and I've believed in them for over a decade, and even though I can accept the ramifications that these theories may bring, should they be proven true, it's still hard to really understand what they mean. The outcomes that we would get to if we follow them to their logical end are so alien to us that they seem almost implausible, and yet they would explain what's happening to us. So, how did these strange changes known as the Mandela Effect happen? How is it that we have real memories of things that have apparently never existed, at least not in this universe? So, after a few days, I took several deep cleansing breaths and decided to attack the question logically, using the theories that I had already developed in my faith of multiverses and a created reality based on the principles of quantum physics. In early November of 2017, I started researching what were the latest discoveries in quantum physics, and I learned that there have been some really interesting things discovered over the past 10 years. Quantum entanglement has been proven. At the time that I wrote my copyrighted essays about my personal religious faith in quantum physics, it had only been a theory, and also quantum entanglement of mirrored pairs has been proven. Another interesting thing that I learned when I continued my research was that astrophysicists have discovered that the mathematics of our universe appears to be written in something like binary computer code, and many astrophysicists and mathematicians believe it's just too perfect to have occurred by accident. In fact, quantum physicists have looked closer and closer into the construct of our reality, looking at things that are billions of times smaller than even a single proton. And they have discovered that reality appears to be constructed of little tiny tetrahedrons measured in a unit called a Planck, the smallest unit of measure that we have at this time. Its measurement is 1.616229 times 38 times 10 to the negative 35 meters. And that is very, very small. In other words, what we perceive as reality is constructed of unbelievably tiny pixel-like bits of information or data. Another interesting new discovery is that the paradox many of us learned in school about Schrodinger's cat, it appears to be answered. Who knew? Apparently, according to the laws of tiny particles, if a chooser isn't able to perceive an event, then the event can't happen. What that means is, unless and until someone or something is able to perceive a cat in the box in some way, which Schrödinger stipulated was not possible, then there really isn't a cat in the box. Let me state it another way. If a tree falls in the forest and no one or no thing is around to perceive it, then it doesn't make a sound. That old question has been answered. There is no sound because there is no tree. For that matter, if someone or something isn't available to perceive the forest in some way, then it's not really there either. Wow. It really gives a whole new twist to that feeling that you get when you walk into a huge quiet forest alone and you look around at the majesty and feel like it was all created just for you. Maybe it was. But physicists liken that phenomenon to the way a computer game doesn't populate a new area until a player wants to move into that area. From the player's perspective, the area was there all along. But from the creator's perspective, an area only populates when it is needed, just like a computer game. So, how does this relate to the Mandela Effect? Well, before I can link them all together, I have to explain one more concept. And hopefully when I'm done, it will give a lot of people some peace of mind. So way back in the 1990s, human genetic code was deciphered. Well, that's only partially true, though, because at the time, the scientist who so-called deciphered it could only account for about 10% of an average human DNA strand. I have to chuckle at that because the scientists of the day referred to the remaining 90%. That's 90% of human DNA. They referred to it as junk. Yes, junk. It's ridiculous, of course. Just because scientists don't know what it's for, it doesn't make it junk. And even then, I guess that the remaining 90% provided some further designation to our place of all living things in the planet or on the universe of somehow, but now I believe that it does a lot more than that. And it has to do with multiverses, quantum entanglement, and mirrored pairs. Recently, biophysicists have discovered that DNA code looks amazingly like computer code, not a binary code of zeros and ones, but a quaternary system. That is to say, it has 4 characters of designation, specifically G, T, A, and C. Scientists have long known that people with similar genes share similar traits. They look alike, have similar eye color, hair color, maybe even have similar health conditions. And these things we notice because they're obvious to us. But I believe the part of the code that doesn't make sense to us is really a kind of location marker that designates our location in this place, in this time, on this little blue rock, in this specific universe. It's kind of like our own personal IP address. It leads directly to us from the broadest designations, such as which multiverse grouping we are a part of, to the specific universe we belong to, straight down through space-time, which dictates when we will exist on this planet, and then of course down to the rest of it, the kingdom, the phylum, etc. Eventually going all the way down to our own individual and specific DNA code. Think about it. If space and time only exists for us here, but our creator exists outside of this place, then the creator, if it wants to access any place and time and any creature or object within this universe, there must be a way to quickly access it. When we want to reach a specific person, we open up our laptop and turn on the internet, and then we input a long string of unique characters that leads directly to one individual. And the really interesting thing about this concept is that people who use the same internet provider and live in the same area share a lot of common characters in their IP address, which only becomes unique near the very end, just like human DNA code. Well, I propose that every item and every creature that has ever existed or ever will exist has a unique code assigned specifically to it. Living creatures have DNA and non-living creatures have other kinds of codes that identify them. So, if this is true, then how does it apply to the Mandela Effect? Well, I believe the quaternary code of the DNA strand alludes to the fact that there are at least 4 multiverses linked together. There could be more than 4, but they would have to occur in multiples of 4 because DNA has 4 characters. So there could be 4, 16, 64, 256. Well, let's just, for simplicity's sake, we'll assume that there are only 4. Each individual multiverse is designated by one of the DNA codes G, T, A, or C. So somewhere on the DNA strand is a part that stands for individual multiverses and directs the creator to whichever one is desired. One single character on the strand could represent an entire universe, just as one single digit would direct you to an entirely different IP address. I propose that a group of multiverses connected as entangled mirrored pairs that are positioned similarly as equal and opposite mathematical formulas graphed out on math graph paper, like this, designated by the DNA code identifiers as the dominant G, T, A, or C, and the non-dominant code attached to them would be in relation to the other multiverses and how they are related to one another. So each one of these universes exists side by side, just as computer files do, separated and designated by an identifier code and understood by us as G, T, A, and C. But to our Creator, existing outside of this reality, they are recognized in a way that is meaningful to it. And assuming our Creator is a light or an energy being, I'm just guessing, but it may be some sort of frequency, such as an electromagnetic resonance, something that seems ungainly and complicated to us, but would be easily identifiable to a light or an energy being. And as an aside, I would like to point out that we all individuals have our own weak electromagnetic frequency. Possibly this energy is a personal identifier that the Creator can use to identify us as individuals. But when I look at this theory about a frequency of some kind, such as an electromagnetic resonant field occurring, what could be occurring on our planet that is so big that it is causing the Mandela Effect? Well, after some speculation, more research, I remembered that the Earth's magnetic poles generate an electromagnetic field, which is created by the inner workings of the Earth's dynamic movement. This electromagnetic field has been stable throughout human history, but scientists have discovered that it flip-flops about every 200 million years. And very interestingly, it has been about 300 million years since its last flip-flop, meaning we are well overdue for dramatic changes in our electromagnetic field. In fact, geologists and other scientists have noted random fluctuations in the Earth's electromagnetic field, which I also refer to as its electromagnetic resonant frequency. And I believe these random fluctuations have been affecting data associated with our individual universe and the other multiverses most closely linked to ours. I propose our universe and our closely related multiverses, identified by the designated characters G, C, A, and T, are all experiencing these random fluctuations in an equal and opposite manner. So as our North Pole here in universe G begins to shift southeast, our closely related multiverses are shifting in equal and opposite directions, as shown on the diagram. But if this is true, how does it relate to the Mandela Effect? Well, obviously this is just a theory, but if we can accept that our universe and all of the entangled multiverses related to it are made up of data bits that we perceive as reality, and our Creator has a way of identifying our locations in space-time by designating a frequency of some kind, and we know that our Earth's own electromagnetic frequency has been experiencing random fluctuations, well, I postulate it's at least possible that as these fluctuations have occurred, random data bits are becoming muddled and their characters are transposing, which is causing these random bits to cross the barrier between the entangled universes. To our Creator, it may be just a few transposed characters, but to us in the universes, we are experiencing them as data switching. And ironically, they would get muddled in an equal and opposite fashion, which explains why I have a vivid and real memory of Australia being around 1,000 miles further southeast. And it has all the feel of a real memory, and it's exactly the same so-called mismemory as hundreds of thousands of others, which is highly unlikely. So my theory is that the memory is real, but it's coming from another me in another universe. It's a smattering of random data that has flip-flopped from there to here. While it is possible that the other me and I have flip-flopped entirely, except for a few random memories that got caught up and sent back during the transfer, that would mean that all of the yous that got flip-flopped had the exact same data snag with your memories that I have. So it just seems more reasonable to assume it's the data memory itself that has been minutely and randomly affected, and not the entire people within the universes that have switched. Also, the fact that it's affecting just a small segment of the entire population, it makes it seem like it's small data bits changing. I did try to illustrate this in the diagram. I can assume that when the electromagnetic fluctuations are done and our poles have finished shifting, causing this semi-permanent change in the Earth's electromagnetic resonant field, either all of our memories will align with the correct universe and we will have no memory of it ever happening, or it will shift and we will have the same kinds of random bits of data out of place, but even this will vanish from human memory once we all pass away. But, as some people are saying, I suppose it's just as likely that this is part of some awakening, and when the poles finish shifting, then all of the various we's in all of the various entangled multiverses will be transformed in some way. I truly don't think that the random changes we are experiencing now are dangerous or evil. They're just a natural part of existing in the universe our Creator made for us. These electromagnetic fluctuations have happened before, but since no human was around to experience them, it's just something we have no memory of. So, it seemed like it made sense to me. I thought about it for several days, ruminated on it, this new theory of mine, and after I made sure that it did account for these changes, I shared it with someone close to me, someone who has very serious concerns about the Mandela Effect, especially the changes in the Bible. I wanted to get her opinion. I wanted to see what her thoughts were, and so I then began focusing on the Bible verses that have changed, especially the most offending Bible verse. So the primary concern with the Bible is that the words have changed. I tried to consider what a creator might have done if it had designed this biological, geological, physical system, knowing that changes in the electromagnetic field would occur from time to time, possibly causing data problems. Well, a creator obviously would be existing out of time and space. Our Creator would have seen creation from beginning to end, just in the same way a computer designer making a game knows the various flow of the game and the various glitches that may come up, and they address those glitches from beginning to end until they're gone, or at least accounted for in some way. And when we read the Bible, we see in Matthew 6:26 that our Creator cares for the birds of the air. If our Creator cares for these creatures, surely our Creator cares enough for us. So I assume, surely our Creator would have arranged some way to calm and to guide us through these changes. So when I scrutinized the most offending passage, which is Isaiah 11:6, which many people, including myself, learned reads, "The lion shall lie down with the lamb," but which evidently in this universe actually reads, "The wolf and the lamb will live together." It is disconcerting to see the words and the phrases have changed, but after careful consideration, I believe that our Creator did take this discrepancy into account, because while the words have changed, the meaning is still the same. The meaning of this passage is clear, that the natural order of hunting, killing, and eating prey in the manner of lions, wolves, and people will not be the natural order after we ascend to the next level, whatever that means, either when we depart this mortal plane or our Creator transforms us here in this universe somehow. In the other entangled multiverses, my other me's are likely confused because they learned the passage was about a wolf, but now it reads a lion. Or conversely, if you read further down, it reads that it was about lambs, and it now reads that it's about kids, as in baby goats. The changes are equal and opposite, but the meaning remains the same, no matter which one of the entangled multiverses is reading it. So spiritual people who believe in a creator who guides and comforts you don't feel that God has forsaken you now. Rather, revel in the fact that something supernatural, something spiritual and amazing has happened, and you are one of the lucky few who noticed it. While it is a leap of faith not to become alarmed by these changes, they make the universe feel kind of flimsy, don't you think? But maybe that's what we're supposed to feel about the universe right now. Jesus told us in John 14, "Let not your heart be troubled," which he ironically followed up in the remaining passage with the words, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," which is John 14:2. When I read that passage every single time, it seemed to me that Jesus was hinting that there were other worlds, and that really is the origin, the genesis, if you will, of my belief that we are living in part of entangled multiverses. Because he went out of his way to include that in such a way that really seems out of place for that time and place. They would have had no concept what to make of that statement. Now, when I read it, it makes perfect sense to me. So I do find comfort in that. I'm not troubled by this. My heart is not troubled. And also going back to the offending verse, Isaiah 11:6, the end of it is still the same, and it reads, "A little child shall lead them." This passage is meant to reassure us that in the coming time, in the changes that are going to be brought to us, it's going to be so safe and peaceful that even a small child will be safe there. So if we have faith and trust in the Word of God, then we need to believe that all of these amazing things that we are experiencing are part of what we are supposed to be experiencing. I firmly believe we should expect something better and not be fretting about things getting worse. So that's my complete theory. It has to do with multiverses and data getting a little muddled, crossing the barrier, basically crisscrossed. I have included some excerpts of the essays that I wrote and copyrighted way back. I think they were copyrighted in 2008. I wrote them in 2006 and 2007. So you can see that this was a theory that I had developed long before the Mandela Effect was ever spoken about, which I think is relevant for people who want to find some peace and comfort. Thank you very much. Namaste. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I would invite you to like the video, share it and link to it, pass it on to people who may be troubled or who have asked repeatedly, where is there a legitimate theory for what's happening? Well, here is one. So thank you very much. Oh, and comment. I'd love to hear your comments. Have just a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.